Welcome to the deep dive. You've handed us the sources, and now we're building you the shortcut. Today we're tackling something truly foundational to all of modern technology.
We really are. We're looking at the fundamental divide between the continuous physical world we all live in.
And the discrete computational universe that's ticking away inside every single device you own.
That's right. And our mission today is to properly understand the translator that bridges these two realities, the analog to digital converter, or ADC.
Because if you want to know how light becomes a photograph, or how sound becomes a digital song,
Or even how a sensor reading becomes data for a massive AI model, you have to understand the ADC. It all starts there. The world is just inherently analog sound, light, pressure. It all flows.
but the power, the flexibility and the perfect storage we demand from our tech, that only exists in the digital realm.
So it all comes down to mastering that handshake between reality and the machine.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. The source material you sent over had a great analogy. How do we visually distinguish these two worlds?
Think of the analog world as being completely continuous. It's like a rolling ocean wave. Just beautiful, uninterrupted,
Smooth.
very smooth. An analog signal is a waveform that varies infinitely in both time and amplitude. It represents a physical thing, like air pressure from a sound, with an electrical voltage that perfectly mirrors it.
So mathematically, we're talking about real numbers here,
Yeah.
right? The kind with infinite points between any two values.
Exactly. Endless nuance. But then you have digital, which is the complete opposite.
Right.
If analog is that rolling wave, digital is a meticulously constructed set of stairs.
Okay.
Digital signals are discrete. They are restricted to very defined voltage levels, which is, typically binary, the ones and zeros we all know. It operates in chunks, in defined steps, integers, not real numbers.
What's the big consequence of that continuous nature in the analog world? Especially when you're trying to, say, copy or store something.
The consequence is just extreme vulnerability
To what?
to noise. Because analog relies on those smoothly varying voltages, it's just inherently susceptible to electronic noise, to interference from anything, really.
So any tiny voltage fluctuation gets interpreted as part of the original signal.
It gets baked right in. And that's what leads to the infamous generation loss, right?
I was just about to ask about that.
When you copy an analog signal or transmit it, that unavoidable noise just accumulates. It stacks up. And there's no way for the system to tell the noise from the original signal.
And that's the hiss on an old cassette tape.
That's the hiss or the static on an analog TV. The original signal is just perpetually being corrupted by its environment. It's fragile.
But the digital system, the stairs, that gives us immunity to that.
Yes, that's the key. The fixed binary states. Digital systems have these robust noise margins built in, so as long as a little fluctuation in voltage doesn't cross the threshold that separates a 0 from a 1,
The system just ignores it.
it just sees a perfect 1 or a perfect 0. You can copy a digital file 1,000,000 times and the data remains mathematically identical. It's that move from the fragile, infinite nuance to reliable integer precision that has really driven the digital revolution.
So if the world is the ocean wave, and our computer only speaks the language of the stairs, the ADC is that crucial translator. How does this complicated apparatus actually do it?
It's basically a 3-step process:
Hmm.
sampling, quantization, and then digital coding.
Okay.
And the first step, sampling, that's where we tackle the time problem. We take these discrete, instantaneous snapshots of that continuous analog signal. The rate we take them at is the sampling frequency.
And this is where we hit that critical mathematical law that really governs this whole thing. The Nyquist-Shannon sampling theorem.
Yes, this theorem is fascinating. It tells us the absolute bare minimum we need to do to avoid corrupting the signal right from the start.
Which is?
To capture a signal properly and prevent something called aliasing, your sampling frequency has to be at least twice the input signal's highest frequency component.
So for music, humans can hear up to about 20 kilohertz. So you need to sample at over 40 kilohertz.
Exactly. And that's why the standard for CD quality audio was set at 44.1 kilohertz. It gave the engineers a little bit of a necessary buffer.
And if you don't do that, if you sample too slowly,
You get aliasing.
can you explain aliasing for us? What does that actually sound or look like in the real world?
The classic example is the wagon wheel effect you see in old movies.
Oh, right, where it looks like it's spinning backward.
Exactly. The camera's frame rate, its sampling rate, is too slow for the speed of the wheel, so high-speed spinning appears to slow down or stop or even reverse. In audio, it means high-frequency sounds are incorrectly interpreted as lower-frequency sounds.
So the signal is just fundamentally corrupted.
Irreversibly. The reconstructed sound is just not accurate to the original at all.
Okay, so sampling handles the time axis. We have our snapshots, but now we have to deal with the amplitude, the height of the wave at each snapshot. And that brings us to step 2, quantization.
Quantization is where we force that continuous, infinite amplitude of each snapshot onto a finite, defined number of discrete steps. This is directly tied to the ADC's resolution, which we measure in bits.
So an n-bit ADC.
An n-bit ADC gives you 2 to the power of n distinct levels.
Looking at that for the first time, it sounds like a really rough approximation.
Yeah.
A 1-bit ADC would just be on or off, right? Everything in between is just gone.
That's the fundamental trade-off. We have to sacrifice some of that infinite precision to gain digital reliability and robustness. But when we use, say, a 16-bit ADC, which is the standard for CDs,
You get a lot more levels.
you get 2 to the 16 or 65,536 distinct steps to represent the voltage.
That's a huge number of stairs. So does just increasing the resolution, the number of bits, does that solve the problem of approximation completely?
Not completely, no, but it makes the error so small it becomes statistically insignificant for most things we care about. However, this process introduces that fundamental, unavoidable issue: quantization error.
Quantization noise.
Exactly. It's the gap between the actual precise analog value and the closest available digital step. It's the price we pay for converting the continuous into the discrete, and you can never, ever eliminate it entirely.
So that error is always there. Even if it's so small, our ears can't perceive it in high-resolution audio.
Correct. And then the last step, digital coding, is simple. It just takes that quantized level and assigns it a binary code, the ones and zeros that a processor can work with. And the whole system is judged on its accuracy, its linearity, how evenly the steps are spaced, and its power consumption.
That idea of unavoidable error leads us straight into the real-world trade-offs.
Yeah.
It brings us to that famous debate in audio: analog versus digital.
Yes, and our sources really illustrate this tension perfectly. For a lot of audiophiles, analog audio, vinyl records, they have this subjective richness, a warmth. It feels more natural because it is a continuous wave.
And there's a physical, tactile experience to it that digital just doesn't have.
Right. But the downside is physical degradation. A vinyl record wears out. It gets pops, clicks, hiss. Digital audio CDs, streaming, solves all of that instantly.
Absolute consistency.
Unparalleled consistency, clarity, portability. A high-quality digital file sounds mathematically identical every single time you play it. But, and this is the caveat, some listeners still say they miss that warmth, or they can hear compression artifacts in lower-quality files.
And this subjective preference is really just mirroring the objective decisions engineers have to make when they choose an ADC for a specific job. They have to prioritize speed or precision or power.
Exactly. Let's look at the 3 main ADC types in the sources, starting with the fastest one.
The flash ADC.
The flash ADC is a speed demon. It's designed purely for rapid conversion. It uses a whole bunch of parallel components to do the conversion in basically a single instantaneous operation.
And where is that kind of speed essential?
Anywhere you need to digitize a massive amount of information really, really quickly. So high-speed data acquisition, military radar systems, high-end digital oscilloscopes, its only real benefit is pure speed.
But speed always comes at a price.
It does. A flash ADC uses the most components, so it's high power, it's high cost, and crucially, it's not great for high resolution. The power draw just explodes as you add more bits, so you're sacrificing precision for that speed.
Okay, so if flash is all about speed, what's the opposite trade-off? If I need maximum precision, accuracy above all else, what do I use?
That would be the Sigma Delta ADC. It takes a completely different approach. Instead of sacrificing resolution, it uses oversampling.
Meaning it samples way, way faster than the Nyquist minimum.
Far, far faster. And it combines that with some very sophisticated noise shaping techniques.
And what does that achieve?
It effectively pushes that quantization noise we talked about into frequencies where it can just be filtered out with digital filters. This lets it achieve incredibly high resolution and accuracy. It's the precision engineer of the ADC world.
So you find these in, what? High-end audio gear,
Yeah.
medical imaging.
Exactly. Professional audio encoding, medical imaging, precision scientific instruments. But I'm guessing you can see the drawback.
It's slow.
It's very slow compared to the other types, and it needs all that complex digital signal processing to clean up the data. It's a classic case of precision over pace.
Which brings us to the one in the middle, the workhorse, the SAR ADC.
The successive approximation register, ADC, yeah.
Huh.
The SAR has become hugely popular because it offers a great mix of everything. Medium to high speed, good resolution, and really importantly, low to medium power consumption.
How does it work?
It works by making a series of comparisons, kind of like a digital balancing scale, to zero in on the closest binary code for the analog input.
So for general use, where you need pretty good accuracy but you can't drain the battery, the SAR is the go-to.
Exactly. It's everywhere. Industrial control systems, data gathering, power management. When you're an engineer, you're always making that triangular decision. Do I need speed, precision, or efficiency? You can almost never have all three.
That's a great way to put it. Now, building on that idea of trade-offs, let's pivot to something really fascinating from the sources. Analog computing. We always think of early computers as these huge, room-sized digital machines.
Like ENIS.
Right. But for decades, analog machines were actually the dominant way to solve certain problems.
That's right. From the late 40s to the mid-70s, they were essential, especially in fields that needed real-time simulation, like aerospace, vehicle design, even early weather modeling.
And the sources are clear.
Yeah.
They weren't superseded because they were slow. In fact, they were often much faster than early digital computers for certain tasks.
Yeah.
So why did they disappear?
The main reasons were maintenance and programmability. Every time you wanted to solve a new problem, you often had to physically get in there and rewire the circuitry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Digital systems, being easily programmable with software, just won that battle decisively. But the core advantage of analog computing never went away.
Which is that they excel at solving complex systems of differential equations.
Because they literally create an electrical analog, a mirroring circuit of the physical problem. And this is what's driving their modern resurgence. They have inherent advantages digital struggles with.
Like what?
First, they are naturally and inherently parallel. All the components operate at the same time. Second, and this is maybe the most important thing for today's tech, is their extreme energy efficiency.
Okay, so where is all the power cost coming from in a digital system when it's running a complex operation?
It comes from switching. Digital is all about high-frequency voltage transitions. It's constantly charging and discharging millions of tiny components, these parasitic capacitors, every single time a bit flips.
And that up.
It's a massive energy cost at the scale of a modern processor. Analog values, though, are continuous voltages on a single line. They avoid all that constant switching.
That completely reframes the power problem. The energy cost is based on the fundamental physics of how the information is represented.
Absolutely. And that efficiency, plus their numerical stability, which the sources note is, quote, no problem at all in analog systems, makes them irresistible for some modern jobs.
But there's always a compromise. What's the big one here?
Precision. The output of an analog computer is limited by the physical precision of its components. You're typically limited to maybe 3 or 4 decimal places of accuracy. Digital can give you virtually limitless precision if you want it.
Which naturally leads to the modern solution, the hybrid computer.
Yeah.
You combine the strengths.
Exactly. Digital provides the logic, the memory, the high precision where you need it, and analog handles the super efficient real-time processing. And this is really taking off in analog-on-chip applications.
Specifically in AI and medicine?
Precisely. For AI and neural networks, analog circuits can perform matrix multiplication, which is the foundation of AI with incredible speed and a fraction of the energy. And in medicine, think of something like an advanced cardiac pacemaker.
The ultra-low power consumption would be key.
It could enable devices powered by energy harvesting, meaning the device could run perpetually, drawing power from your body's movement or heat. No more bulky batteries that need invasive surgery to replace. Analog tech is directly enabling the next generation of permanent, implantable medical devices.
So, after this deep dive, what's the big picture? What does this tell us about the relationship between our physical world and our digital tools?
It tells us that digital circuits are, indispensable for robust computation, for logic, for storage, but analog circuits are the non-negotiable, seamless interface with the physical world we actually sense. The ADC is that critical, constant handshake between the two. And every engineering choice is just a pragmatic decision based on what an application demands most: speed, precision, power, or cost.
Okay, so let's unpack this one last time with a closing thought for you to chew on. You now know that digitizing reality is essential, but it means transforming continuous flowing information into these discrete segmented points. We talked about how the Nyquist rate says we have to sample at least twice the maximum frequency to, in theory, perfectly reconstruct a signal in time. But we also established that, in practice, we always introduce a slight, unavoidable, irreversible quantization error during the amplitude conversion.
Always.
So if the real underlying world we're trying to capture is truly continuous, and every single digital system requires this fundamental, irreversible loss of nuance, that small essential quantization error, to even operate, how much of our perceived digital reality is actually a mathematically necessary yet inherently imperfect approximation of the continuous world it seeks to represent? The answer might just determine the limits of computation itself, something to ponder until our next deep dive.